The Digital Photography Cafe show is brought to you by Focus Pyramid, the autofocus lens calibration tool for your camera.
Welcome to the Digital Photography Cafe show. Join host Trevor Current and Joseph Cristina as they serve up the hottest photography news and commentary.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is episode 242. I'm Joseph Cristina here with my co-host Trevor Current. How's it going, Trevor?
It's going great. How you doing?
Excellent. A little bit under the weather, so I'm kind of congested today a little bit, but besides that, we're okay.
Yeah, it's been one of those winters, man. It's been ping-ponging through our house all winter long.
Yeah, it's rough. It really is. I haven't been sleeping well. It's just nuts. I just hate that. You know, you try to go to sleep, you lay back, and you're like drowning. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Spring is upon us, so hopefully we'll all be getting better soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, talking about drowning, you know, seems like the magazines that we just both, you know, just know and love are just all going out of business. They are just not able to stay afloat. What is going on?
Yeah, honestly, it's been a rough couple weeks for the photo industry for sure, as a whole. And unfortunately, guys, it's going to be a little bit of a doom and gloom sounding show today, but this is all relevant industry news. Yeah. And this is why we need to talk about it. But you know, digest it for what it is and make your own decisions about the photo industry from what you're hearing. But yeah, Popular Photography magazine and American Photo both shut down. Yeah.
And you know, Pop Photo, you know, Popular Photo, we always kind of call it Pop Photo. I mean, that thing's been around since like 1937, guys. 1937. Yeah. I mean, this is not like something that just sprung up and couldn't make it. So it's really sad because I know I cut my teeth on Pop Photo, you know, back in the 80s. You know, and that's, you know, literally 50 years after they've been, you know, started this whole thing. So it's really sad. It really is. But it just shows where, you know, print is. People just are not consuming, you know, things in print, number one. And number two, you know, we the people, you know bullshit when we hear it. And that's really, or see it. And what happens is, you know, back in the early days, if you look at some of the old magazines that they came up with, it was a lot of like how-tos, tips, tricks, what to do, what not to do, how to shoot, what, you know, all this kind of stuff.
Right. It was good content.
Good content. And then all of a sudden, it turned into basically paid promotions for all these major companies. And, you know, you never knew. Advertorials. You never knew what was authentic and what was just, you know, garbage. So people just, you know, saw into it and said, you know what, I'm not paying for, you know, advertising anymore. You know, if you want, you could pay me. So, but
I mean,
that's
as it is, it's nice holding a physical magazine with beautiful photography in it. You know, you just can't get that online. Yeah. You just don't get the same feel. I mean, there's something to be said about holding it in your hands.
I love the smell of the ink, personally.
Yeah, the smell of it. I mean, you know, but we're a little bit older, and as some of our audience is, but today's generation of photographers, the young 20-somethings, they grew up on digital. You know, they see print magazines in their parents' house. You know, they think, oh, that's old school stuff. You know, they grew up on digital. So for the younger generation, this is natural for them. Everything is consumed online. You know, they're getting all their information. They're getting everything online. I mean, I remember back in the video maker days and early some of these photography magazine days. I mean, I was really interested in the advertisements and the pages of different products and stuff because that's how I learned about them. Yeah, you know, that's how you knew what existed. But
today, see, the thing was you could discern what was real and what was Memorex. You know, what was actual an advertisement and what was a advermercial. You know, some type of paid placement. And many times these things now take the, take a look of an actual, let's call it an article based on something that is of wanting, right? And then all of a sudden, by the time the article's over, it's like getting you to buy some knickknack of some kind. Some more gear that you really don't need or want. Now, what they said is, the reason why we're having to pull the plug on the magazines is because, the rise of, iPhonography, iPhone photography, any type of smartphone photography, and then the method of instant sharing, being able to just take a picture and putting it online, and people aren't using cameras anymore. I personally think it's a bunch of nonsense. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, smartphones have definitely changed the industry as a whole. We know that. For the people that were buying point and shoots are no longer buying point and shoots because the smartphones do a good enough job and are comparable to that. You have your more hobbyist photographer, you're somebody who's more serious about photography. They may have a digital, a DSLR. They may have a mirrorless or something like that because they want to experiment and play with photography. It's not about creating snapshots. Right. But a lot of the hobbyist photographer that was buying these magazines, though, I think they've kind of lost interest.
Yeah, I agree.
Because photography is bigger now than it has ever been. But the photo industry, the companies and services, providing for the photo industry is diminishing.
Yeah, it's just shrinkage. Shrinkage is shrinkage is occurring. I mean, a perfect example is with Nikon. I mean, Nikon 2 years ago, they talked about putting out this line of cameras that were going to be in direct competition with Sony's RX line, the RX 100s.
Right.
And they came out with 3 cameras, and the specs were just unbelievable. 4K, they were APS-C, they were mirrorless. They just checked all of the boxes as being something that we would want. And literally months before, now 2 years later when they're going to go live, months before they were going to go live with this set of cameras, it's called the DL line, they decided to pull the plug and say we're discontinuing the line before even continuing it. It's like discontinued before creation. I mean, it's
before
crazy.
It ever launched. Yeah, well, and that goes back to Nikon's restructuring that they're doing too. Obviously, Nikon is feeling the pains right now financially. They're trying to figure out what they need to do. They're trying to figure out where they can cut products, cut their losses, by eliminating this line of cameras that ultimately would compete with established lines of cameras. They probably looked at it and said, maybe this is not our best course of action right now. For the diehard Nikon users, the DSLR users, the people who've invested thousands and thousands of dollars in bodies and lenses, it's probably better for them because then they can focus on that core group rather than trying to move into another market where they're really going to have to try and compete. Nikon has a very diehard group of core users for their more professional and upper end equipment. The same as Canon. I mean, that's why we see Canon not really innovating with new equipment and their mirrorless offerings and stuff like that. It's kind of, again, more of the same. It's because they're trying to keep that core audience because breaking into the new markets are really hard to do right now.
Well, we saw in the last time we were at PhotoPlus Expo, Nikon's attempt to, let's call it, get in on the action market, right? So they created the Key Mission, I think it was called, and there was like 3 different Key Missions, and it was a direct competitor with GoPro because they saw how great GoPro was doing, and we're like, well, we know that market is doing really well. Let's go ahead and make our own. So they did. They created the Key Mission, and I think it's one of those things where you're flailing around trying to make $1 and not seeing that industry is also going down the tubes. And a perfect example of that is GoPro. And, GoPro back in November of 2016, they cut like 200 people, right? Laid them off, right? It cost them like $33 million for that restructuring. Now, just days ago, we see the same type of events happening, right?
Yeah. Now they're cutting 270 jobs to reduce their operating expenses and to try and achieve that profitability. So, they came out with this drone, right? It was going to be their own drone, because everybody's using GoPro cameras on their drones. So they come up with the Karma, and Karma apparently really is a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
and just was a big flop. They were having a lot of problems with them. They were recalling them, and they were losing a lot of money. That just adds insult to injury. I mean, these guys were probably already really feeling it, obviously, as far back as November of 2016. Right. Now they're cutting even more. They're looking at, again, you're looking at as much as 12%, 15% or more of people that are being laid off. And now they're saying that it's going to cost around $10 million for restructuring costs. And a lot of that is severance packages.
Yeah, so literally
basically just get people out the door.
In 4 months, you have about 500 people cut. You have a total of, let's say, $43 million of restructuring. And it seems to, just to the ends of trying to become profitable again to the investors. And, they're feeling it. China, I don't care what it is. And people, we go back and forth with the whole Chinese thing back and forth. China is one of these places where if you send your products there to be built, it gets copied. End of story. Yeah. The only way around it is to have your items sent there to multiple factories, send all of the parts back to the US and have them assembled here. If not, it's gone. All right. So it's really difficult. So, and they're feeling this pressure. There's a lot of GoPro lookalikes out there that they're not doing well, but they do, it does make them feel it because there's going to be less revenue. And now you have Nikon jumping into, throwing their hat into the ring. And it's like, Nikon, didn't you get, they're not doing well. Why do you want to go?
Did you see the memo?
Did you not get this memo? If you take a look at their charts of what their revenues look like, it's just slowly been going down. Now it's spiked down. So I mean, stocks are up by like 12%, but that's just because they laid off 500 people in 4 months. Of course stocks are up. It's just it's not a good
from a business standpoint. Right. From a business standpoint and trying to be profitable for their shareholders, it makes sense to do. But from a photo industry standpoint, it does not look good, because they, along with Nikon and a bunch of other companies, are all having to take these massive steps to try and remain in business, to try and remain profitable, because you can only be unprofitable or not profitable for so long, especially when you're a public company. Then the shareholders start freaking out, and push comes to shove, decisions need to be made, and then before you know it, they're going bankrupt, they're shutting their doors. It's no secret, there's never enough time, especially when it comes to editing our photos. Whether you're a pro and time is money, or have just fallen in love with photography, imagine how much better it would be if your edits were done sooner, so you can get back where you belong, behind your camera.
Make that dream a reality with Aftershot Pro 3 from Corel, the world's fastest way to sort, select, and perfect your photos. How fast? Try up to 4 times faster than Lightroom.
Aftershot works to fit your workflow by adding new cameras over the web, so you only get what you need. No bloat from unneeded profiles. Create your own plugins, add custom lens corrections, plus find all kinds of presets right in-app.
For just $79 with no subscription, you can't go wrong. Don't sit on the fence, try it out. Visit aftershotpro.com/DPC to get your free 30-day trial for Windows, Mac, or Linux, and try before you buy. So, talking about profitability or not profitability, we've talked about in the past a lot of these startup companies, these Kickstarters, because we think that they're, really great. Because some of these ideas that they have are really good. But the problem is profitability doesn't happen. They don't get enough sales, number one. And then they either don't make it, or what happens is, let's just say, something shady happens.
Right.
Well, just recently we saw a report from a article that we talked about a while back, and that was for the Lily, and that's what it was called. It was like a drone, and I remember this guy was like surfing, and he had this wristband on, and the drone would just follow him, and he's surfing down the pipe. Just really cool
wicked
stuff,
concept,
right?
Yep.
Wicked concept. I mean, this was really,
and it's
really
one of these small things you just put up in the air by yourself. I mean, you don't need all the, you
just throw it up.
Yeah, exactly.
And it follows you, basically. And then you could tell it how far away to follow, how high, where to maintain, to either do 360 sweeps, whatever you wanted to do. It just looked really, really awesome. Well, that doesn't seem to be happening.
No, they put together an awesome Kickstarter campaign. They raised $34 million. People love the idea of this, right? You know, in this world of drones, here was something that sounded a little bit more unique. Again, not necessarily for us photographers, but more for these action sports guys, the guys that were buying GoPros and having to have their friend fly their expensive drones and crash them and stuff while they were doing these sports. So a lot of these extreme guys thought this was just awesome. And apparently they're defaulting on the campaign. They're saying that they are not going to be able to produce these, that they're filing for bankruptcy, and that they're putting a game plan in place for the refund of this $34 million. And and if and when that will ever happen, because part of the risk you take whenever you do these crowdfunding things is it is a risk. There is no guarantee, and you may lose your money. And when you read the terms of service and all of that stuff about participating in Kickstarter, that is one of the things that they tell you. It's like investing in the stock market. You are at risk.
Yeah, and let's look at it this way. They had an amazing campaign that they put together.
Oh, it was awesome.
Okay? They had amazing video that they put together. Amazing 3D CAD drawings and all kinds of stuff, right? So just think about, let's say a movie maker creating a short film or maybe an indie film, and it costs them, let's say they're looking on making $500,000, $1 million, $2 million on this indie thing. Just think about these people put together let's say a 5-minute video and created a good enough video to make $34 million. That's pretty good,
Not a bad payday.
Not a bad payday. And I seriously doubt, Trevor, that any of these folks, or very few of these folks, are going to see that $34 million back. A lot of that is just spent. It's very easy to say, we're doing R&D. We sent, $6 million to somewhere here in China to do that. We sent, to have just people write invoices, and the money just disappears in bankruptcy court. And that's just the end of it. And, you look at the bottom line, it says, well, you really aren't due anything because it is a risk. You took the risk and we weren't able to, create it. And that's the end of it. So, you have to be careful. We, both Trevor and I absolutely love Kickstarter. There's a lot of cool stuff that's come out of Kickstarter. There's a lot of big products that have come out of Kickstarter, and we've seen a lot of junk also. And we tried to report on the stuff that we think is going to make it, or that we think is just so cool you have to know about it. And this Lily was one of those. It was just so friggin' cool, and it was ahead of its time the way it was put together. And now looking back on it, I wonder if it was real. Like how much of it was real and how much of it was stage when it comes to it working.
Sure. I mean, was it a 3D printed prototype only that they actually had for mock-ups, for photography, for display? The video that was created with this thing following along, we don't actually know that it was the Lily that was following. It could have been any drone following them with a camera on it to create the video. So I mean, there's always these different thoughts. Was it a scam? Is it legit? I would love to see the reasoning for this bankruptcy.
Right.
I mean, $34 million, I think, is quite a bit of money to be able to produce some, to take some existing technology of RC, GPS, and stuff and cameras, right? With auto tracking and, autofocus and everything, kind of put that all into a shell and make it happen. So I really don't think that it's a matter of, needing to develop this technology now that's just not, able to be done. I don't think it's that. I would really doubt that. So I would like to know what the reason is. I'm glad I didn't invest.
I know, me neither. But anyways, moving on, Olympus. We do like the Olympus cameras. I am not a fan of small sensors,
right?
And Olympus is known for their 4/3 and their micro 4/3 lines. Well, just I think it was last week, they said we are nixing all of our 4/3 lenses. Now, when you hear 4/3 lens, you're like, oh yeah, these little toy lens. No. Some of the 4/3 lenses were like $6,000. They're not little cheap lenses. So by them nixing it, basically says that the 4/3 are basically dead. We're now going to spend our time at micro 4/3,
right?
And working on our micro 4/3 lenses and just nixing the entire 4/3 line. So, I could see that happening because I don't know how great the 4/3 is actually doing when you have companies like Sony creating small camera bodies that are no bigger than some of these micro 4/3 camera bodies.
Right.
Definitely smaller than some of the 4/3 bodies, which were huge, that still had, shutter boxes in them.
Right.
And they're doing it not in micro 4/3, which is like the size of, tiny, compared to full frame. They're doing it on mirrorless.
High resolution full frame. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't see where this whole 4/3 or micro 4/3 is going. I just don't.
No, it's obviously a format that never caught on. People opted to stay with APS-C because that was one of the big industry standards. And why would you go to this other format that's smaller than APS-C, And then you've got the other camp that wants something that's more compact in the micro 4/3 line. But again, like you said, they had to beef up some of these bodies, though, I think for, ergonomics, first off, to get them a little bit bigger. Because realistically, I mean, some of the point and shoots that were out on the market were so small, they were almost unusable because of ergonomics. They didn't fit in your hand, So with these micro 4/3 cameras, they actually have to beef them up a little bit to fit in your hand and to also make them look like they're not just some rinky-dink consumer camera, because a lot of these manufacturers, Olympus, Panasonic included, are trying to hit that pro market with these cameras. So they need something a little beefier, something that looks a little more pro. So this 4/3 line, I just think completely missed the mark. Back to the photo industry changing, the innovation. They tried something, it didn't work. Now they have to cut it to save money, save expense. And, what is it? 25 lenses that they had are being discontinued. And lenses, optics is one of the things that Olympus is known for. They have high quality optics for their scientific stuff. And they've applied it to photography. So it's a shame.
So basically, they're rolling their money into something that is working. Let's call it in big quotes, air quotes, kinda, sorta. Which would be the micro 4/3. We'll see what happens with it. I mean, this stuff is expensive. It is. Sony's just doing so well right now. It's really hard for anyone to compete. So hopefully, they hang in there. Now, talking about other, industry leaders that aren't doing well for professionals, and that's Apple. Apple, as of late, or not even as of late, for the last couple of years, has just been doing nothing for us professionals.
It's been all consumer products.
Yeah, they haven't updated, their Pro line stuff. They haven't updated a lot of the stuff that we use. It was kind of when Apple kind of went down when they went from the old version of Final Cut Pro to the new version of Final Cut X. And a lot of people just, abandoned ship, went over to, the Adobe line Premiere, and that was the end of it. And they never looked back. Now, a lot of us stuck with them. I mean, I'm using still a 27-inch Mac, and I love it. But I tell you what, Trevor, I'm right now in the middle of getting parts together to build a PC.
Right.
Now, will I go all PC? I don't know. We'll see. But the bottom line is I used to be a PC guy. I've used Linux. I've used all sorts of derivatives of Unix as a system administrator. I love Mac. My first Mac was an Apple II Plus. So you can imagine how old I am. But anyways, that was my first Apple product.
Right.
And, I still use them now, using Final Cut. And, for me, I'm really, once I make this PC, I'm going to be looking at it and possibly sticking with it, because I just don't, there's nothing left. And just recently I heard that the OS doesn't even have a team anymore behind the OS. They have a big team on the iOS, but they don't even have a team of people that are working on OS X. That's a major problem. So updates are probably going to be just security patches and like minor stuff, and that's it. I'm a professional. I need stuff to be current. So, not to do any kind of Apple bashing. If anyone could, I can, because I've been using them for 20 plus years. But it just doesn't forebode well. It really doesn't. And I have a feeling that once I make this new PC, I'm probably just not going to look back. I'm just getting kind of tired of being, I would say, looked down upon by Apple as a professional in comparison to the consumer.
Right.
And I understand that, because they're making more money with iPhones and with all the consumer products than they are with their PC line. But either support us or don't. Stay in or get out, by losing an entire crew and, not bringing anyone in to do OS X and not to do things that you should be doing.
Right.
I mean, that's just not cool. It really isn't. Just because you are a behemoth, that doesn't mean you have to act like one.
Yeah, well, I think that has kind of been Apple's MO over the last couple years. They see where the real profit is, and that's in their consumer electronics. The computers are used by a small percentage of the overall market in comparison, and they're looking at it just saying that at this point, I think, we'll maintain our current base for as long as we can. I think they will always have like a MacBook, lower end level laptop, because people still like that, and it fits within their consumer line of products for their integration. I think they'll stay at that level. The Pro level, I mean, those Mac Pro cans, as awesome as they sound in theory, they're really expensive, and it's using older technology. And I think you're right that when you build a modern day PC with all of the latest and greatest motherboards and video cards and, incredible amounts of RAM and stuff for half of what you would spend on a Mac. I mean, we're in the world of Adobe CC now. If we need Photoshop and Lightroom and Illustrator and all of the other products, we have no choice but to go subscription model, right? So at that point, once you're in the Adobe camp, you can be Mac or PC. It doesn't matter. Right. You can download the software for either. So dumping it onto a PC that is a really powerful, up-to-date, modern machine, I think you're going to find yourself doing the majority of your work over probably the first 4 to 6 months. I think you're going to find yourself migrating almost entirely over to the PC.
Yeah, I have that feeling. And what I'm going to do is I'll take you guys on this trek with me through my vlog, on YouTube. If you haven't followed me over on the YouTube channel, do so. And, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I agree 100%. CC is just, it's cross-platform. It doesn't matter where I put it.
Right.
So
exactly.
I think that's it, Trev. We need to get out.
All right, man. Sounds good. So if our listeners and viewers want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
You guys can find me on Twitter. That's at Joseph Cristina. That's Cristina without an H. And once again, follow me over at youtube.com/JCristinaPhoto.
Excellent. And you can connect with me on Twitter. It's @TrevorCurrent or over at my website, currentphotographer.com.
So that's it, guys. We're out of here for yet another week. You can get all the show notes from this episode by visiting digitalphotographycafe.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/dphotocafe. That's it. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.
You've been watching the Digital Photography Cafe show with Trevor Current and Joseph Cristina. Subscribe to our YouTube channel with any compatible device by visiting youtube.com/dphotocafe. Be sure to subscribe to our audio feed through iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Xbox Music apps or through RSS. Visit digitalphotographycafe.com for show notes and to connect with your hosts.